To my panel now, Fox News political contributor Tammy Bruce, Independent Women's Voice President, Beverly Hallberg, District Media Group President, and Eric Schiffer, Patriarch Organization Chairman and CEO and Reputation Management Consultant Chairman. Beverly, I'll start with you. There's so many different angles here. One emerging story is, where the heck is Mark Zuckerberg?
I want to know, why isn't he speaking out on this? What we do know from this situation is it looks like prior to 2013, 2014, that Facebook did not adhere to the privacy policy that they gave to their customers. They said that their data would be protected in certain ways, and it looks like that's not the case. So what I'm hoping is not only the policies that Facebook has moving forward adhere to that, but also that our members of Congress are doing everything that they can to protect democracy. And what I mean by that is if you have an organization like Cambridge Analytica who may be hacked very easily. They may not be a company that can handle this kind of data in a secure way. And so we have to make sure foreign actors such as Russia aren't accessing it. So I think when it comes to Congress, they do have a duty to make sure people's data is not being compromised.
Of course, Eric, the bottom line is when it comes to Facebook or social media, these guys are trying to sell ads. I mean, they're trying to sell data, and they're saying, hey, we're not a media outlet. We shouldn't have to abide by certain rules. But there's no doubt at this point they have opened up a can of worms for themselves, and there will be some kind of additional regulatory scrutiny, right?
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether the regulatory scrutiny actually happens. Certainly, it's a negative environment, and they are in the data business. I mean, that's what they are. That's how they monetize. And it's interesting. They still weren't adhering to any kind of policy up to this point. I mean, they were giving some of these researchers access to be able to ultimately get access to everyone's data. And it'll be interesting how they play it. What I would suggest they do, I mean, if they're going to try to handle this short of regulation, is get a commission. Have some kind of data commission for security. Bring Republicans and Democrats onto the commission and try to at least get it so that government doesn't regulate. What I don't want to see is Europe using this as some kind of bat to hammer American companies, and I think that that's a concern too.
Right.
But they do need to protect Americans in this process.
Well, the EU will use this to extract money out of all of these companies one way or the other, that's for sure, but they were already angling for that anyway. Tammy, it is sort of an interesting situation, though, because how much government do you want to invite into this situation, as if we trust them any more than we trust Google, Facebook, and the others?
When we talk about rules, we've seen over the last several weeks that agencies don't follow their own rules and are willing to lie about what they are doing. But what's important for people to realize as well, Cambridge Analytica is the main company people have been talking about, and some media pushing it with the Trump connection. But The Guardian is reporting that, in fact, one of the arguments from a whistleblower is that it was hundreds of companies potentially, certainly also reports that it was the Obama administration, that it was a multitude of companies that had complete access to the data, and that Facebook looked the other way. So this is going to be the investigation. What did they know? Did they choose to not care? It's being categorized as a breach, but in fact, people had access. Nobody had to hack into anything to get this data. Right. And this is where, when we're talking about regulation, in this age that we've not addressed yet, when you have that kind of information, first also, is privacy really dead now? When the Obamacare website, when the Anthem, when all kinds of places are already hacked, at what point? But the issue becomes, did Facebook lie to their clients, and did they lie to the government about what they were allowing people to access? And that's what we have to find out.
And I should point out to the audience, you brought up Cambridge Analytica. Their CEO was suspended, but this is associated with the undercover recording that was released this morning, very incriminating recording, and it doesn't necessarily connect dots back to our election. But Beverly, we are in a new Orwellian world, and let's face it, though, part of that's on us, right? We put our information out there voluntarily. We have allowed these companies, a handful of companies, to know more about us than we know about ourselves. And now we're saying, hey, protect us from ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, I think it makes us wonder whether or not we really should log in all our information into the Fitbit that many of us are wearing on our wrist if if our data can't be protected. And I want to say to this point as well, I think when it comes to data, I think when we're looking at advertising, this is a new way to advertise. It's not wrong for the Obama campaign or the Trump campaign to have some data to send out campaign ads. That's how we do it through social media. But what we're seeing is Facebook, in addition to the privacy breach here, we also have a company that seems to want to censor conservative and conservative messages. So when we talk about regulation, I think, do we really want the government that targeted conservative groups through the IRS to now regulate Facebook?
Right.
And Facebook is really just an extension of what we're seeing, which is shutting down dialogue among Americans. And I think that's another disconcerting part of Facebook.
Yeah, Eric, there's no doubt. We heard from a former Obama staffer brag that Facebook, was okay with them manipulating this data, harvesting this information in the same way that Cambridge Analytica did, in part because, quote unquote, they were on the same team. So if we're going to have some sort of universal rules out there, we better hope they apply to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you have Messina doing this with the Obama campaign. And what really concerns me overall with all of this, Charles, is there's one person, one group that has access to the most up-to-date data on everyone to manipulate their lives, control power, and that's Facebook. And the concern I have is the fact that you have this anti-conservative set of sentiments that are coming out of the Silicon Valley offices over there, and you combine that with the concerns about the fact that they are playing defense on the fact that they elected Donald Trump, in essence, because the platform was so useful. And what may they do in 2018? What could they do in the presidential elections? And how will that data get used? How would we ever know? And that's the concern. And that's where we need to really look closer. And if that means regulation on some level and it helps conservatives, then I think that needs to happen.
Well, it would be actually, this is a good point about whether or not just existing regulations for media companies would apply to Facebook so that we know what it is they're doing, that they have to, report in the same fashion.
They have pushed back against that.
Well, they have,
tremendously.
but this is not new, though. We understand these regulations. We apply them to media. They could be applicable to Facebook. Of course, they don't want to. It would affect perhaps their bottom line. But these are the conversations we have to have.
And Beverly, are you?
Absolutely.
Do you think we'll have them, or would this be just another one of these episodes in America where social media, particularly Facebook, is front and center with almost everyone sort of concerned, and still, nothing really happens?
Well, I hope something does happen, but I hope it's not in the form of heavy-handed government regulation. I think it's more important for people to be aware of what can happen to their privacy. I think that there is also the individual aspect to this, that each one of us has to make sure we're not putting our information in places that can be hacked. So that's what I hope this leads to, because let's be honest, when it comes to D.C., all it takes is the next news story that buries all of this.
All right, folks, thank you all.